Tariq, you look pretty, man. How you doing, man? Yes, good to see you, bro.
Your name was like 4 letters long.
John. Yeah.
John.
Pretty simple to remember, it's a biblical name. So, but yeah. Oh, nice. You're giving out their leaflets, yeah?
Yeah, that's my usual stall up there.
Oh, nice.
My usual boys, yeah.
Yeah, I've spoken to them before. They're probably going to approach us, by the way, and say, oh, you need to leave, and it just try and waste time.
They don't usually do that. I've never seen them do that to anyone.
They've done it to me when I've been here, so unfortunately that's what happens. But if they do, like, I would, it would be okay to have.
Looking good today.
Oh yeah. Okay, again. It's a bit cheap, but it's all right.
It's the weather for it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the weather for it. But yeah, like, look, I wanted to bring a question to you, like, for example, like, because you, as Muslims, obviously believe that Allah has a spirit.
Sugar heart, just leave them.
Yeah.
Say again? Just leave them. Sugar heart.
I did say that to you.
Fair enough. Yeah, you said it.
Yeah, I did say to him that. No, there's no problem. There's no problem. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to stand here. But like, I did say to you that this was going to happen. He's being very aggressive, unfortunately. So,
I'm very aggressive.
That's fine.
Because of the way that you go on.
Okay then. Well, that's your opinion, man. Right, so Tariq, this is the problem I have, because I want to have a decent conversation, but this is the problem I have. Tariq? It's just, this is what I mean.
But if it's us, they will hold you back.
I did say to, look, so Amy, I did say to Tariq, this is what's going to happen. They're going to come to us and they're going to say, don't talk to me. And
I find that
it's okay.
It's
We are the one who invite you. They invite you. Now you are ready for the invite.
Yeah.
That's what you say.
I mean, this is what I mean. I'm not scared of anybody. I'm not scared of that big guy. He can run his mouth. I'm not scared of him.
That just shows that Islam is a cult.
Yeah, it's a cult.
Come there to even say you can't. You're in the back of my head when that man is probably like 25 or something.
I know, like, and people have seen the guy's face, and I want everybody to notice that face. That's the face of somebody who's a victim, by the way. You know that big guy, beard, bald head? Victim, absolute victim, because he knows how dangerous I am and how dangerous the Lord Jesus is, more importantly. I'm nothing. I want to say this, I'm nothing, but that guy, he's scared because of what Jesus proclaims and what Jesus has done through me.
No, when they can't get you, that's what it is. When they see you're not the vulnerable, it becomes like war soldiers.
Yeah.
Do your peace, let the spirit lead you. Don't do carnal this with them.
But this is why I don't really... And I'll say, are you filming, Fred? I will say this right on camera, right? This is the reason why I don't approach Shai, because one, they're scared of me anyway, so they keep running away from me. I say, how you doing, man? Would you guys have a conversation about Christianity?
Right now, I'm just in a rush, brother. I'm coming back.
You're coming back? If you're coming back, then God bless you, man. No, it's a Muslim, I think. But basically, yeah. I just want to say this. Look, ultimately, with these Da'i, these Muslims, right, they're very scared of somebody who's able to debate them tactically. Yeah, commentary. Yeah, they're scared of people who's able to debate them tactically. And of course, their way of getting rid of any question of their religion is to be like a cult and just to rush people away.
What if it's you? If it's a Christian, you see they want to tie you down.
Yeah.
The moment you come and they start videoing you.
Yeah.
We're just having a normal conversation. They didn't even ask you for the
I know. I want to say, like, that guy Tariq, nice guy. I like the guy, yeah? I'll say this on camera, right? He came to me and I said to him clearly, they're going to come up to you and they're going to say to run, right? And they're going to say to go, right? And he was kind with me. He shook my hand. He said he appreciates how I look and all that stuff, man. That's the type of Muslim I like. These Muslims don't like them, sorry. Don't like them. No, everything. Yeah. How you doing, man? Have they? How you going, man? Yeah, I did. I just told you, as I said before, that they would come and they would try and interpret stuff. So, I mean, it is what it is.
So, I'm talking to you purely because I said I would if I saw you again.
That's fair enough.
I told Amy I didn't really want to talk to her again because I feel like it wouldn't really benefit either of us.
Fair enough.
So,
I'm fine with that.
But you, I only spoke to once and I said I'd be happy to, so I'll talk to you again.
That's fine. And I'm fine with that. This is what I mean. I like this interaction where we're just talking. There is no need for kind of brutality or attacking each other.
The sun is, do you want to step
Yeah.
just for your own sake? Yeah, just for the ease of both of us.
I'm half African, mate, so it doesn't really bother me, but yeah.
Fair.
Yeah, I mean, really, I just wanted to speak about the spirit of God in the Quran. For example, if you read chapter 19, verse 16 to 19, or Surah Al-Maryam, as you'd call it, basically it says that the spirit came in the form of a man and he said to Mary, I'll give you a son. Now, if you know anything about Arabic, the word used in Surah 19:17 is li'ahaba, which means to give. And then obviously you read in Surah Al-Tahrim, for example, it clearly states that's Allah blew his spirit into Mary. Now, from what I've heard from most and even from what I've heard from most Muslim commentators like Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn Abbas and stuff like that, they basically claim that that spirit in itself is Gabriel. Now, the Quran doesn't state that Gabriel is that spirit. It doesn't state it anywhere. In fact, if you look in any verse, it doesn't state that. It's for example, an often claim made by Muslims is that, well, the spirit sent the wahi down. Gabriel is the one who sent the wahi down, therefore they sent the wahi down. But if you read chapters like 77:5, for example, or even chapter 21, I think it is 21. Don't know the eye off the top of my head. You can get it up yourself.
I'm also bad with numbers, so yeah, I don't really remember ayahs numbers for numbers.
Yeah, it's just from reading it. But basically, like long story short, it literally says that the angels and the spirit come down and give the wahi. So again, if the angels are distinguished from the spirit, they can't be the spirit. But if Gabriel is an angel or a malaki, he can't be the spirit either.
I can respond to this.
Yeah, but
I just want to preface this by saying, obviously, like I said before, my knowledge of Islam comes from my studying of the English Quran. When I analysed it, I found enough proof to convince me that the original author of this message was God. That was my point. So I'm just putting that out there.
But we could have a conversation about that
after. I'll talk on this. I just wanted to put it out there for the sake of context, right? Okay. Holding. Do you mind? Actually, not great with my hands. Do you guys want to do it? I'm dyspraxic. I'm not great with fine motor skills. Do you mind, bro? I'm so sorry.
I don't know where the clip. Oh yeah, you got it. Yeah.
Just check if it's working.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway.
Would you like me to repeat the question so you understand it, or?
I think I remember. So your point was that it's a bit convoluted, or maybe a bit you don't really understand the angle that an angel was there that, according to you, is not defined as Gabriel in the Quran, and that God blew basically Jesus into Mary, basically.
No, that wasn't my question. So my question was, I'll rephrase it. So basically, Surah 19, verse 16 to 19. So Surah Al-Maryam, verse 16 to 19, clearly says that the spirit. So it says Ruh al-Qudus, used in chapter 289. It says the Ruh came to Mary and said, I will give you a son. He came in the form of a perfect man, that's what he says. Right. And then if you read Surah Al-Tahrim, so Surah 66 verse 12, it says that the spirit breathed his spirit, so Allah breathed his spirit, into Mary. I didn't say Jesus, but I said Allah. So there's a contradiction there. Well, not a contradiction. There's a contradiction of terms, because perfect Tawheed is the idea that Allah is one in his essence and being, and that he has no partners. The problem is we have here a partner in creation. If you as a Muslim claim that the Ruh al-Qudus, or the Ruh used in chapter 19:17 is not Allah, then you have another problem, because Allah then becomes partners with, the spirit becomes partners with Allah in Surah 66:12, Surah Al-Tahrim 12.
So what I would say, just to make, there's quite a few things going on here with this topic. One is the nature of how God works, how angels are used by God. There's quite a few things, so I'll try and break this down as much as I can.
Of course, take it on.
Keep it, I speak, you speak, I speak, you speak.
No problem.
Make it clear for everyone.
So
God does what he wills, first and foremost. He can do things in whichever way he sees necessary, whichever way he sees as optimal. There have been times where people have asked, why doesn't God just send an angel down in its pure form and have everyone see it so no one doubts it? And God gives a reasoning for that as A, it would be too easy, and B, for those who are confused, they would only get even more confused. Like, why didn't he do this before? Why didn't this and that? So it's just suboptimal. It would work, but it's suboptimal in the long run. So, for example, you could ask the same question as why, God didn't send the same prophet for every single person. Why didn't he send Moses every time he's warrior? Or Abraham, he's warrior every time? So God does his things in the only way that he knows best is the best, right? He knows what God does. He also has angels, which is a legion of beings that don't have free will. They just do what God says, in whichever way God says it should be done. And it's not because God can't do it, it's just, if he has people that can do it, why would he do it himself? It's just, he literally has them to do a job. Why would he do the job that they can do, right? We're not going to worship the angels, they're just essentially foot soldiers, henchmen. So this is a case where all of those things are kind of in action at once. An angel is sent down. It's understood that it's probably Gabriel. I don't know enough about it to say yes or no because you say it's not there, and off the top of my head I can't remember if it is there or not. The word Gabriel.
No, it's not.
So, but it is also very much established that Gabriel is one of the best two angels that God has, the strongest, the mightiest, the most trusted, obviously the one that that relayed the Quran to Prophet Muhammad. So I'm sorry if I'm like going on a bit here, I don't mean to.
It's fine, I'll give you time to speak.
But for a job as important as giving, basically bringing birth, bringing into, sorry, again words. A job as important as making Jesus come to be in Mary's belly and reassuring her as to what's going on. God says to something be and it is, but if it just happened out of nowhere, Mary would be very scared because she knows she didn't sleep with anyone, maybe someone attacked her or something at night or something. The fact that someone with such brilliant character came to her and said, don't worry, I'm not here to harm you, just letting you know what's going on, okay? That's my understanding of that situation.
All right, so now I'm going to explain what the Quran says, and from my reading, it's all we can get into tafsir and stuff. That's fine. I know you don't know about that tafsir, but I do. So, for example, if you read people like Ibn Abbas, for example, he claims clearly that's an angel. The problem I have, and whilst you can claim that the angel Gabriel is a superior angel, right? He claims to be one. Yeah. The problem I have, the Quran is not very direct. For example, the Quran says in chapter 50, verse 1, chapter 21, I think, verse 1, chapter 11, verse 1, it also says in various other chapters that it's a very clear book, or it's clear enough to convey a message. Right? Yeah. So I would argue this, look, the Quran's not very clear on what that spirit is. For example, it says in chapter 1785, right, that nobody knows what the spirit is. Now, if nobody knows what that spirit is, then it's clear that not even Muhammad, because Muhammad says himself, I don't know what the spirit is. I just know what it is. And the other thing is, Surah 19, 16 to 19 clearly states that's a spirit. It doesn't claim an angel. Now, the word used for angel is malaika. That's the word. The word used in that verse is ruh, or ruh al-Qudus, or ruhana. These are different variations of that word. Now, if you read chapter 2, verse 89, it says that the Holy Spirit gave the wahi. Now, your argument was that basically, well, that Gabriel was gifted with the ability to send a revelation. But I've just told you, chapter 21 says that it was the angels and the spirit that gave the revelation, the wahi. And there's even another verse, I think it's chapter 77, verse 5. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's that, or it's either 577. Might be getting it wrong, but basically, it just says that basically, like, so Allah, when he's saying we in the plural of majesty, as you would call it, says that we sent the revelation down. Now, understand, you could claim that that was an intermediary, but you can't then claim that was an angel. Right, I know that's what Islam believes. I know that, yeah. The understanding from Muslims, and as you just said, is that that Holy Spirit is Ruh al-Qudus, and I understand that as well. But the problem is that the nature of that spirit is called our spirit in that verse. For example, Muhammad Pickford, when he's translating his Quran, he literally translated our spirit. If that's Allah's spirit, then we have another problem with Tawheed. Allah's spirit becomes a man, says to Mary, I'll give you a son. Now, your arguments earlier were about basically, well, hold on, well, Allah does what he wills. Well, I could just simply claim to Muslims, and a lot of Muslims keep attacking the Trinity this way, I could simply claim to Muslims, look, if it's the case that you can say Bila Kaif without how, or we don't know, or Allah Amin, we don't know, then we can claim the same thing as well. For example, the incarnation happened because we don't know. But I mean, I hope I'm not misleading you, but the problem I still have is that the spirit, the Ruh al-Qudus, is Allah's spirit. It says to Mary, I'll give you a son. Liya Haba is the word used to give in any Arabic lexicon. Yeah. And it's evident that that spirit has to be God to give, unless we have partners with Allah. Okay, so I'll try, there are a couple points there. I'll try and get on all of them. No problem, take it on. So, as the brother said behind the camera, when the Holy Spirit is mentioned in the Quran, it is mentioned in near identical terms to the angel Gabriel. Right. For example, the Holy Spirit accompanied Jesus, and the angel Gabriel accompanied Jesus. These are in two different verses, but it's exact same context, exact same sort of sentence structure. It's just the word Holy Spirit and the angel Gabriel are used interchangeably. It could be a type of spirit, a spirit that is considered holy by God, as in not that God would worship it, but it is one that people can look at and say that is a really great being, like one that God has favored highly among other beings, like that is the favor of God.
that could be what that is. But the fact that it's used interchangeably means that there's not much issue between a Muslim calling the angel Gabriel the Holy Spirit. And of course, that would be something Christians really wouldn't vibe with. I understand that, because they've got a very different understanding of it. But that's how Islam that's how Islam understands the Holy Spirit. Sorry if I'm missing some points.
It's fine, take your time.
So that was the first thing you said. The second thing, you said sort of three things. There was the first thing.
So I'll just make my points. I'll break them up a bit. Yeah. So the first point was obviously about the spirit, and you mentioned that spirit is used interchangeably with the angel Gabriel. And then my second point was that spirit, if it is the angel Gabriel, if we're going to call it angel Gabriel, right, is also the spirit that Allah blows into Mary. And he says also in Surah 19:16-19 that I will give you a son. Now the term used is Leah Harbour. So this is another problem where, like, if we're going to say that Allah has no partners in creation or in anything, right? Then why is it in creation of Jesus that Allah has? Why is it in creation of Jesus that Allah has a partner? A specific partner says, "I will give you a son."
So again, okay, to clarify that then. So my understanding of what happened there when the angel Gabriel appeared to Mary, he reassured her what was going on, and then he blew into her. That blow didn't actually need to have an effect. God says be, and it is, and he made it very clear that he just made it be. That might again have been for reassurance for Mary to see what was actually going on, to like feel that something was going on, just for her to be more reassured, because it's a pregnancy. It's a huge event for someone to understand and like go through in general, right? Especially if you've not done the thing that makes you pregnant, which is a really big thing, something that will give you a lot of scandal, especially in those times. Yeah, it's a huge deal. So as much reassurance as possible. Even while she was giving birth, she was really panicked. And the Quran makes it, I'm sure you may have seen the verse as well, that God specifically gave her a secluded place in the Quran, under a date tree. She could shake the tree palm, and dates would just fall on her. The stream was directly beneath her that she could drink from if she needed to. Give her everything she could possibly need to make the pregnancy and delivering the baby bearable.
Right.
The pregnancy in itself is pretty unbearable anyway. So that's my understanding. Again, I'm just one Muslim, I'm just one guy. It's just my understanding.
And I understand that's your understanding, but that doesn't address the point. Because the point was, look, the Spirit says to Mary, Leah Harbour, I will give you a son. And we still have the problem if it was either Gabriel that gave Mary the son or Allah. Because if we're going to say that Gabriel's used interchangeably with Spirit, which by the way I don't agree with, because again, if Gabriel's an angel, as I mentioned before, Surah 21 says that the angels are distinct from the Spirit. But you're saying they use interchangeably, and I know it's understanding if people like Ibn Taymiyyah, for example, that he's like the archangel, he's like the grand angel, and that's therefore in virtue of Spirit.
Honestly, that would be my response. Like, for example, I wouldn't call someone who is on benefits, I wouldn't say they're the same as a king, right?
Of course,
it's a completely different playing field. They are the same race, sure, but you wouldn't look at one and say it's the other, because unless you're But
you wouldn't ascribe the attributes of one over the other. For example, a king has the ability to give authority.
Yeah, a lowly angel would not be anywhere near the same playing field as...
But this lowly angel is saying, look, I will give you a son. Which again, if we're using Trinitarian language, for example, I may be imposing a bit of the Trinity, but what I'm doing is basically showing why, well, for Muslims really, why it's... my understanding fully, but why it's inconsiderate, and I know you're not, but I'm saying it's inconsiderate for Muslims to come up and say, well, the Trinity can't be true because it doesn't make sense, or the Incarnation can't be true because it doesn't make sense, because there's plenty of things in the Quran that don't make sense. And this would be one where I'd think one could simply claim, well, it's how it's Bila Kaif, we don't know, because simply the Spirit is saying to Mary, I will give you a son. The Spirit is clearly described as Allah's Spirit, and I would argue that it's distinct from the angels, and it's distinct from the angels in many different ways, and that's no one could even know it. For example, I mentioned 1785, but to address the point that I originally made, the Spirit says to Mary, I will give you a son. And in Surah Al-Tahrim, Surah 66 verse 12, it says Allah gave Mary a son. So it's either the case that the Spirit gave Mary the son, or Allah gave Mary the son. It's either the case that Gabriel gave Mary the son, or Allah gave the son.
So I'm going to try and address the other point that you made as well as this one, because this was the one from before and I don't want it to get lost. So if you were to give me your KFC because you wanted to be really nice today, I could say both you gave me the KFC and Allah provided me the KFC. Both of those things would be true. Okay. I think there's something else in there which we're categorically just not going to agree on. can't quite put my finger on it because I know you're coming from an angle that the Trinity must be true because that's what you know to be true, and I come from an angle that the Trinity is categorically not true because that's what I know to be true, and I know that's not going to change in this conversation. So as far as I can tell you, I again told you my understanding already. God does what He wills by whichever means He wants to or needs to. He says to something be and it is in whichever ways it needs to be. For example, if the Earth needs to get hit by a comet, Allah will say be. The Earth will get struck by a comet.
Yeah, kun fire kun.
Right. You could say no, God didn't smite the Earth. The comet hit the Earth, but no, God was the one that just said for it to happen. God said be and it was. Okay, that's the understanding we have. Like I said, so I'm going to leave that there purely because there's something in there that I know we're not going to agree on, and just to save both of our times. So the other thing was that with God being mysterious and us having similar approaches to Christians in that we don't understand what God is doing, but that we use that as ammunition against Christianity. That's a similar point you were saying?
Yeah.
So the Quran is very clear, and you said this before, the Quran is very clear about if there is something we need to know, we know it. If there is something we don't need to know, we don't need to know it, it's not told to us. God doesn't tell us how to produce electricity. We don't need to know how to create electricity, but it exists and we can do it, okay? That's just not something we need. What we do need to do is stay away from magic, which Allah tells us to do. Stay away from eating various meats, for example, that have been prayed over to false deities. As all you know, we go by halal. Pork as well. Jesus didn't eat pork. We don't. If something needs to be known, God makes it known by some means or another, and He makes it so that the information is available, right? Otherwise, it just wouldn't be fair, right? I'm not going to hell for something I just straight up didn't hear about and didn't know. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it does make sense.
Exactly. So those are situations which you won't find in Islam. You won't find stuff like that. I'm going to try not to trail off so much because I know I tend to do that.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I'm remembering your points. I'm just trying.
Okay. The third thing you said. What was the third thing you said? No, I had it before I started talking. I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's fine.
The third thing you said.
So it was basically just regarding Surah Al-Tahrim, so Surah 66:12.
Yeah.
The Spirit says to Mary in Surah 19:16-19, I will give you a son. And in Surah Al-Tahrim, it's Allah that blows the Spirit to Mary, and it's basically the idea that partnership between them both, because Allah...
There was something else that you said. It was before we had that last conversation. You know when you've had that first thing that you said before, like the very first thing you kind of opened up with? There were like 3 points I wanted to go through.
Oh,
first was
I did speak about Trinitarian dogmatics and the idea that Muslims generally are hypocritical when they attack Trinitarian
dogmatics. I keep forgetting. I'm going to try and wrap it up because I've been talking for a bit.
Yeah, there's no problem.
So it's gonna make sense. If something is made not clear, it's not something that will benefit us in a massive way. Like for example, electricity. Or if I were to kick a leaf, how many leaves should I kick according to God? That's irrelevant. That's not important. God won't tell us that information, right? Issue with Christianity that I have as well is that there are a lot of things that are really crucial to the faith. For example, which version of the text is the most accurate? That's a question that deterred me from Christianity. When I was choosing my faith at 15, I was analyzing all the scriptures. I asked my dad, I asked other people around me, which version of the Bible is the best version of the Bible, the most accurate, the one that's most like what God actually said at that time, the gospel, right? And I got different answers. And to me that was in itself was a red flag, because if the people that are supposed to be helping me get closer to God are giving me different answers, and I know that they all definitely think they're correct, then I don't want to gamble on that, I'm not going to gamble on what somebody thinks is right. I want to gamble on what is right, so it's not a gamble, and that's my whole mentality, because we're not here to waste time or waste energy.
We're not.
Like I said, the fact that half the Orthodox Christians that I know say that Jesus is God, and half of them say Jesus is either the Son of God or not God, either of those two, the fact that Catholics are seen as not Christian, and Catholics would see other Christians as not Christian. Half the Catholics pray to Mary and half the Catholics don't. You see what I mean? All of these people apparently love God, and I want to believe that they love God, and I want to believe that when they say they want to be guided by God, that they aren't sticking their fingers in their ears if something else comes to them, and that they actually are like on the right path. But I don't know what Christian you are, I haven't asked. But I don't know if your version is correct to what my dad used to follow. You see what I mean?
I mean, I understand the response, and I'll get back to that response because there was a lot, but like, my main response was just basically the idea of for example, Trinitarianism, the idea that, well, the Trinity doesn't make any sense, so therefore we can't know it, and you've just ascribed what I believe Muslims believe internally, the idea that there's things about God we cannot know. So when you appeal to mystery, for example, when you say, well, Allah's spirit can give Mary son, but we don't know how, it's the same doctrine that even the Al-Asharites or the Asharites had, or even the Faris, for example, their idea of you can't use any philosophy to relate to Allah. And there's also things like apophatism with Allah's being, the idea, I don't know whether you know what apophatism is.
Yeah, you might want to break down some of these.
Yeah, sorry. So the idea that Allah in his being is unknowable. Okay. Right, that stuff. There's no knowledge of us to know, but even intrinsic knowledge, like words, like analogies of Allah, like I'm the most merciful, most loving, are not ascribed to Allah, stuff like that. Yeah. These things, when Muslims point out that we as Christians are not consistent with our idea of the Trinity, they backfire against Islam, because as I mentioned before, and it wasn't answered. Again, like, the Spirit says to Mary, I'll give you a son. Now, the claims you came to me as, well, we can appeal to mystery, and that basically, look, the Spirit and Gabriel are interchangeable, but that has another problem. The Spirit gives Mary a son. If it's Gabriel, we just have to replace it with Gabriel. Gabriel gives Mary a son. If Gabriel does the attributes of Allah, he has to be Allah by nature. Otherwise, we have a partnership.
Okay, yeah. So
so like, hold on to that point, right? The other point I want to bring up is, look, there are many denominations within even mainstream Islam. For example, even Muhammad says in one of the hadith, and I don't remember, I think it's Sahih Bukhari, that there'll be 73 or 72 sects, right? But only one of them is chosen, right? So differences in people's thoughts or beings does not negate the truth of the religion. You brought up there's various translations of the Bible, and there is. You understand that? Because there are many ways that we can translate a text. We can either translate it by its meaning, by its literal meaning. We can try and translate it by its literal words. Like, for example, if I in Spanish mean something, it's not going to mean the same way in English. For example, in Italian, the word embarrassing is not used in, not the word embarrassing, no, the word awkward. So the word awkward is not used in Italian at all. And it's surprising because, again, we could say to them awkward, but they don't understand what we mean. Right? So again, when we translate a word, we have to understand the meaning and the text. And what these expositors of the Bible are doing they are getting the translation of the Bible and the text and the meaning out. It's the same thing that William Pickford did to the Quran, the same thing that, for example, Sahih International. Many different translations of the Quran have this same problem. And the other issue I have is, if you have a problem with Christians doing that, then Islam should be a problem as well, because they do the same thing. For example, William Pickford mentions that the Quran, that in Surah 90, 16 to 90, for example, says our spirit. But hold on, when you read like people like Muhsin Khan, for example, he adds in brackets, Gabriel. Now that's an interpolation, that's a change. We could say, look, the Quran is in its original language, but the fact is, even if it is, a European Muslim is only reading in their language. And if I as a European Muslim cannot relate to God using my own language, then why should I trust that? Why not should I just trust something that, as you say, is more consistent? See, that's the problem I have with this kind of logic. It kind of it limits both of our views, really. But instead, the view that I would have is solely, look, it's the case that within every community, whether religious or not, every ideology there's schismatic differences. I myself am a Protestant. I hold that Catholics are not saved. I do believe that. I don't believe they're Christian. But this is fundamentally due to the fact that the Bible teaches that solely these precepts alone, like God's words, have paramount. They have what we believe sola scriptura, but the words themselves are paramount all over other words. For example, you Muslims would teach, right, if hadith go against the Quran, you would just disregard it. For example, Ibn Abbas's tafsir. I hope I'm not dragging out, but Ibn Abbas's tafsir, for example, where it says that the earth is on an elephant or a turtle. Yeah, it says the earth is on an elephant. You would disagree that agrees with the Quran, correct?
I mean, okay, so I don't know much about hadith. I know many of them are inauthentic due to them either not having good roots or not many people having been there to research it or like hear it. So I can't talk on hadith.
Oh no, that's fair. No, I'm not expecting you to. Yeah. My point was just the fact that there's a lot of hypocrisy going on here, and I'm not saying it's from you. I'm saying it's from most Muslims.
From your perspective,
yeah. Well, from my perspective, I would say it makes sense from my perspective, because again, there's an attack of the Trinity going on, where people are being like, well, it's not true. It's just not true. I would want to focus on something that's true. That's something that makes sense to me logically. Yeah. But when you get to mainstream Islam, you get Hanbali schools of thought, the Ash'ari, Afari. You're led with more confusion about Allah, especially with Sufism. Like, for example, Al-Ghazali. Have you read his books on something on the philosophers.
I haven't read any of the hadith-based books personally.
I've read a bit of his book on the philosophers and his other book. I think it's on the sciences. Read a bit of it. I don't know a lot of it, but I came to the conclusion he himself has a lot of problems with the creeds as espoused by Afaris and others. So there's distinction and differences in your religion. To claim that we have an issue and we can't be trusted, but then to claim that religion's true based upon the fact that you believe there's only one true sect is hypocrisy.
Okay.
I'm just gonna.
I can respond now.
Yeah, you can.
So, the first thing, and I hope this will be the last thing that just because like my brain is going like.
No, that's fine.
Too many tabs open right now. ADHD as it is, but let's get it. So, regarding the blowing into Mary and making Jesus appear in Mary's belly, I can't remember the exact wording used in the text. As I said, if you gave me KFC, I can say both God gave me the KFC and you gave it. The angel Gabriel did an action for whatever reason. Maybe to calm Mary's nerves, maybe to specifically do something that makes the baby appear in the baby. I personally don't know, but it happened. That is done by God's authority. God said be and it is, he said be, and that scenario as it was occurred, the baby appeared. If the angel Gabriel had done that and God had not said be, it would not have happened, period. And I think I said this before, like, you know, if something is not going to happen according to what God says, it's just not going to happen. If you wanted to go to a party and you're sick, you just missed the party, right? Okay. So I'm going to try and leave that there because, like I said, I think like there's something else impossible there that we're just not going to see eye to eye on. Regarding the different...
Do you know what that is, though?
Yeah, like I said, it's regarding you being sure of the Trinity being true and that God should have partners, with one of them being the Holy Spirit, and that might affirm the Holy Spirit. And me categorically believing that that's not true.
I would say, like, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, like, you continue. I would say that the impossible, like, just a sentence, right? So the thing that we're not passing is the idea of Allah having no partners.
Yeah,
because again, if Allah has partners in anything, like you said, oh well, it's like me saying, well, Allah gave me this KFC even though you gave me it, but Allah, that you chose of your own free will, if you believe in free will, to give me the KFC, whereas no, this is an ascription of giving life, which is completely different from KFC. But we'll continue.
I mean, I clarified that the last time we spoke. God decides whether or not I'm the person that's given the KFC. God decides whether it's you're the one that's giving the KFC. God says be and it is. That scenario is exactly as God says it should be. And depending on how we are as people, we are in those conditions. And that's down to that's the free will part. So I'm going to carry on with that. You mentioned that there's difference. You said that it's hypocritical for Islam to doubt Christianity's different sort of sects and belief systems and different sort of understandings and translations and such. It's hypocritical for us to talk about that in a negative light because we have similar things, right? That's the point.
Yeah.
So, reason why okay, there's a lot to break down within that alone. For example, the schools of thought, the different sort of teachers and stuff, all of that is essentially politics. As long as you do not deviate from what the Prophet Muhammad categorically said, peace be upon him, and what is said in the Quran categorically, it's fine. You can debate, you can discuss on whatever way you think is best. I mentioned kicking leaves. If you want to kick one leaf, doesn't really matter. If you want to kick two leaves, doesn't really matter. But if you're doing it to clean a room, and just like to move an object, it will become worse for you to kick two leaves because one will go where you want and one where you don't. This is just a whole debate you can have that is ultimately not gonna, like, you know, it's not core to the faith, right? Believe in one God. Follow his prophets. You know, follow what's in the Quran. Follow what you know the Prophet Muhammad said, right? This is Islam. Everything else is sort of best, you can use best fit based on all of those conditions, right? I attended a talk the other day, actually. This is at my local mosque, where there are 4 different things that you can use to confirm an action, confirm a truth. One of them is go by the Quran, one of them is go by Prophet Muhammad directly, one is by tafsir and the consensus, and the final one is logic. But people misunderstand the last one of logic because they assume, you know, just use your best fit. No, use logic based on the other 3. Like I said with the kicking leaves thing, you know, if there is a ruling on that specifically, use your best logic to apply it to here. There's no ruling on cars. Again, I'm just using examples to help get the point of this. Right. There's no cars in ancient times, right? It's a very modern thing, cars. But if you want to ask an imam if it's halal to leave your car unlocked in a city, the imam would say definitely no. The Prophet didn't say that. There's nowhere in the Quran that you shouldn't keep your car unlocked. However, there is a story where it was either a follower of the Prophet Muhammad or it was the Prophet himself, peace be upon him, I can't remember which one, where somebody went to go to a mosque and they left their camel completely untied. And then immediately, God gave a revelation that they should not, basically God gave a revelation saying counter to that. Or the Prophet said don't tie your camel. And the reason why is because it's unwise to think that God is going to do all the heavy lifting for you. When you have arms, you have a head, you have a brain to do the work yourself. If you lose that camel, that's on you for being stupid and not tying up when you know people can rob it, right? Don't just say God's going to do everything for me because that's laziness, right? That's arrogance. Just assuming God will do what you want because he's not your slave, you're his slave, you know? So that's the logic, that's what I mean, right? So that's where you can use logic to apply to modern situations, okay? Again, this is only in things that actually matter, that don't, getting a bit lost in the source here. So we've been talking for a bit, so I'm getting lost in the source.
No, it's fine, I'm
going to try and bring it back. Regarding the core of Islam, there's only one Arabic Quran. The only other version of the Quran that existed on accident, which the writer himself said everybody stopped reading it, it was an accident, and this is very at the beginning of Islam, where he essentially wrote Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim at the beginning of every surah, but when he was approached by the other people who do, and like the other imams and stuff, he's like, oh, I completely misunderstood. And it is true that whenever we recite the Quran, and whenever there's a new chapter, we say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, as like a preface to the actual chapter. That was a misunderstanding. And so that was quashed completely, and that was never circulated. There has only been in circulation in like public, only one Arabic Quran.
I would challenge that.
And the Quran itself, it says as well, because you mentioned as well that, you know, it's quite unclear sometimes when you translate to different languages. Again, you said about Italian, there's no word for awkward. In Russian, there's no word for challenging, and like, you know, that's a thing with language. In English, there's only one word for prayer, but in Arabic, there's dua, there's salah, and that it gives a distinction, right? That's just how languages work. God makes it a clear point in the Quran that the reason why we are giving you a Quran in Arabic is so that you can understand it, because previously Jesus was revealed something in Aramaic, peace be upon him. Moses had a message in Aramaic, peace be upon him. And the only one that we have, it's not even relevant to this point that we don't have the Aramaic Injil that was available. We have versions that were kind of adjacent to it, like the ancient Hebrew and the ancient Greek, but we don't have the Aramaic. So if God did reveal something in Aramaic, as he did with the other prophets that we know of, no one would have got it. We would have exactly the same issue. But it was in Arabic, so we don't have that issue. That's the point.
I mean, you're bringing a lot of points. I'm going to enjoy it because I want to address
I'll end it there. If you can understand Arabic fluently, you will not have the issue of appropriating languages, because you can see the source, and that way there's no miscommunication. The final reason why I'm even mentioning this at all is because every single sect of Islam, not that you should, if you're a Muslim, be considering this sect, because the Quran says if you're, you know, basically a good Muslim won't be bothered about sects and caring about sects. That's something that you should only really care about if you're dividing a religion, which is not okay. But every single one of them, we have the same Quran. That's my main point. I'm sorry it took a while to get there. Every single one of us, we have the same Arabic Quran in Brazil, in Russia, in UK, in Saudi. We have the same Arabic Quran. Yeah. That is where all the translations come from.
And that's the claim, right? That's the
truth. That's what I know to be true.
I mean, I would say that's the claim. And the reason why I would, because of the earliest transmission of text. Now, we know for the earliest transmission of text from the Hadith. So I'm only going to sources that appeal to you. For example, these are sources from Muslims. For example, we read that Caliph Uthman standardized the text. Now, we couldn't do that with the Bible. For example, the Bible was sent to many different cities and many different provinces, and the church community held onto the Bible.
Yeah, and they got some of it under the basement.
I mean, not under the basement, but basically, like with the Quran, it was standardized. There was an instance, and it's claims from Muslims. Look, from the time of Muhammad, we have one Quran, Habibi. But the problem is, from the time of Muhammad, there was already differences in what that Quran was. That's why Uthman had to standardize it. Because the problem is, like, the claim for Muslims, it was recited and it was orally remembered. Yeah. But you don't burn tongues. you can't burn tongues. There was literal manuscripts that they had lost during that time, or that were in error, and that's why Uthman gathered up all of them and burnt them, because you're not going to burn tongues. And then he standardized the Quran that Hafsa had under her bed, right? After this, we get on. Can I just land my plane there? Right. So the fact is, when we get on to like Hafsa, for example, after Hafsa, after Uthman, there was 5 Quran set to 5 cities with an interpreter according to most Muslims, right? I don't believe it's the case, but it could be the case, right? We don't have any of those. We don't have any of the 5 Qurans from the 5 cities. Not only that, the Quran you have today, and I don't have the source with me right now, but anybody wants to research it, go and look it up. It's the Hafs 1924 Cairo Quran. That's the Quran you've got. That comes from a transmitter named Hafs and his Tabi'un, or there's a lot of Arabic words I don't know, but I'm trying to, like, but basically, it comes from his line of recitation. His line of recitation came in that, basically, according to hadiths, he's a liar. He made up fabricated hadith. If he's fabricating hadith, how is he trustworthy to ascribe the holy book to many different people? That's another problem I have. The other problem I have is, again, perfect transmission of text does not therefore infer that God wrote or God guided this text. I'll give you an example. The Yellow Pages, for example, completely immaculate. Completely. It's got every number of every province, right? You can call somebody up, that would have their number, their business. In every Yellow Pages, you're going to find 99% of the time, 100%. That's how it's going to be written there, right? The words, the numbers, the letters, even down to everything. Everything about the companies you want to go to is going to be written in those texts, right? We could therefore infer, well, God must have just translated the Yellow Pages. I mean, this is a big problem for me. The other problem with me is that we have many different Qurans. For example, Hafs night. We have the Hafs, for example. We have the Warsh. We have the Duri, for example. And there's many others, like Hatton Tash. Don't know if you know her or not. You probably do.
I've heard of this, yeah.
Yeah, she basically has 37 different Qurans and counting. There are others that have been discovered that have variants in the text. And I've got a book, in fact.
I'll talk on this after, but there is a strong point for this, yeah.
I've got a book, in fact. So this is written by Robin Spencer. I don't know whether you know who Robin Spencer is.
Yeah.
So this is called the Critical Quran.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a Quran that Robert Spencer wrote. And basically, Robert Spencer's polemicist. He studied Islam for all his life. He's also a scholar and a philosopher, right? He wrote a Quran with commentaries in it, right? Okay. I just want to read this to you, right? It is a translation, but like, it also.
So again, just to clarify, every English Quran is actually a translation Quran. We would never call it the Quran.
I know you. Here's the problem, but again, that leads to another problem. Like,
it's an interpretation.
It's an interpretation, but if the interpretation is not perfect and we're supposed to be related to nations, then we've got to be able to understand it. Like I told you about the parable of the European.
Go ahead.
But yeah, I'm just gonna get to. So basically, look. So this is Surah Al-Fatiha, right? You can read it there. I've marked it there. So this is what it says. This is chapter 3. The compassionate, the merciful, the master of the day of judgment. This is what is written, and this is a scholar who wrote this. His name is Arthur Jeffrey, right? And he studied this himself. Instead of the compassionate, the merciful, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, a variant seen in Cairo by the Quranic scholar Arthur Jeffrey, 1892 to 1959, has the sustainer, the merciful, Raziki. And it also says in chapter 4, verse 4, it says this, Master of the Day of Judgment. It also says this, instead of Master of the Day of Judgment, the Warsh Quran has King of the Day of Judgment. Now you could view these terms as, well, yeah, they're interchangeable. A master is a king is a master, but these are two different words. For example, a master of your house is not a king. It's not a king.
In Arabic, the word used in this context are the same. So you would, in Arabic, those words, those terms, like we said in English, the word prayer has multiple meanings from an Arabic perspective. There's salah, which is the prostration, and dua, which is an internal one.
And that's a claim. That's a fine claim to make.
That's what that is.
But there's still a difference in wording.
That's my point, right? That's something where the language would be different. This is a situation where, in Arabic, the closest match to English would be both of those terms. Yeah. In Arabic, both of those terms, in English, both of those terms would be best fit. And in English, prayer would be best fit for two Arabic terms. That's why it's always an interpretation when it comes to giving it to a different language.
So you can make salah and dua and that'll be the same thing.
In English, you would understand salah and dua to be the word prayer.
But would it mean the same thing?
English interpretation of those two words.
But would it mean the same thing?
In English, no. Because it's ambiguous and there's two meanings, which is why Arabic is the best fit for it, which is Arabic is what, like every Muslim knows that you should try to learn Arabic for that reason.
Which is, by the way, which is Arabic centrism, which again, it doesn't posit a God that's inconsistent.
No.
I would argue.
Because if you wanted to learn that, if you wanted to know the best of, for example, in the year 100, let's say, you still had access to the Aramaic version of whatever was around in the Gospel.
That's
I
sorry.
don't know
Sorry,
personally what the best wording for that would be, but you would have something there that would be in Aramaic.
So yeah, this is another
Italian,
problem I have.
If you were
with that
like
I'll get to it.
Romanian, if you were Romanian or something, and you were trying to understand the Aramaic that was there, you would have to do the same thing of appropriating the words. It's exactly the same process there. But the difference is today we don't speak Aramaic. It's just in Arabic, which is more easily to access. You have Duolingo on your phone. You can learn in 6 months. You can do that. It's hard. You can do it. Like that's what we're.
Well, there's a claim that you made. So you made this earlier as well. That we don't have the original Aramaic, stuff like that, stuff to that effect. Yeah. The problem is, like, the community may have been speaking Aramaic, but they're also speaking other languages. This is evident from the fact that there was a Septuagint. For example, our earliest Christian text, or one of our earliest, is the Septuagint, written by the 70 Jews who knew Greek themselves. So they knew other languages. Jesus, in fact, in the Gospel speaks Greek, and John translates his Gospel into Greek. According to most of our fathers, by the way, we have the interpretation of Matthew, who writes his Gospel in Hebrew, by the way. So he's copied from the Old Testament. We have John writing in Greek. And we also have the church community translating these Gospels to the nation of their time. It says in Acts 3, for example. And no, Acts 1, for example.
If this to be the last point, so I can respond after, because I'm slightly forgetting things from before.
Oh, no, yeah, this will be the last point.
Yes.
But basically, Acts 2, just honing my point, Acts 2 says that is where Jesus speaks to many different nations. And they speak in other tongues. What is meant by other tongues there is other languages. So they're speaking Arabic, Arabs in their tongue, preaching the gospel, in the British, in whoever, in English, whoever. Yeah. They're doing that solely because the gospel is international. It's meant for all people. The reason why we as Christians believe that there's no, so there was an Aramaic gospel, but the Aramaic gospel isn't important simply because it isn't the sole translation of the gospel from the get-go. We've had translations from the very first, from even John's time. Why does it make sense to you?
Because that's what Jesus had. I mean, okay, I interjected and I'm going to...
No, but I know you're going to lose, but you kind of made a point.
To consider that the Aramaic is not the, like, you know, kind of the main version of the scripture. I don't know the best word for it. You mentioned the point that the Aramaic is not what is needed to understand the gospel.
No, because the gospel was for all nations.
That doesn't make sense to me, because that's what God himself chose to reveal it as. That is the purest version of the text.
See, there's a big misconfusion. For example,
you made that point.
No, I just want to. Can I just hold it, please? Can I just hold it? Because there's a big. Because a lot of Muslims make this claim as well, and it's really just ignorant. Because the Bible says that Jesus came to the Jews. So Jesus was a missionary to the Jews, right? The Jews spoke Aramaic, correct?
Yep.
We can agree with that, right?
Yep.
He then, at the end of Matthew's gospel, says, therefore, go and preach this gospel to all nations. Yep. So the gospel itself was actually for all nations.
Yeah, that's what we would.
So the actual writing of the message was for all nations. So for them to have one specific gospel written for in the Aramaic would have been counterproductive, because it would have gone against Jesus' message to spread it for all nations.
Okay, cool. So I mean, there's an interesting. I'll come back to this because there is something else there. But
all right, well, no problem.
You mentioned regarding different Qurans.
Yeah. Washduri, Hafs. Yeah.
The Qurans, as you started the whole thing with, was recited orally and recalled orally. This did not the message was not revealed in a written form, it was revealed in an oral form. Everybody remembered it. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, even remembered it every single night. It was one of the first ayahs, one of the first verses that came to him was that he should stand up for half the night reciting the Quran continuously.
According to tradition.
That's in the Quran. That's in the Quran. Like, that's a verse in the Quran.
Yeah, but Quran's tradition. That's what.
No. Don't put words in. That's in the Quran.
Well, it's tradition. It's a tradition.
Continue.
Continue.
If you can let me finish, yeah? Because I let you talk for a while.
It's fine. Continue.
So, it's in the Quran. That is an order for the Prophet Muhammad to do. Okay? That is what he did, and that is, that's what happened. The Prophet Muhammad could not read, could not write. Unlettered, illiterate. Could not read or write. He's the one that's preaching this message. How is he going to have notes and stuff like that if it's oral, it's memorized and it's oral, okay? The main reason why it was spread in the first place was because it was oral and it wasn't written down. Do you know how many people could read and write back in those days? Not many people. So having a written version wouldn't do a whole lot of good for most people then, okay? That's just one point. Another thing is the fact, you got Warsh and the different points. That's essentially grammar and layout. As we said, it's an oral, not grammar, sorry, punctuation is what I mean to say. Punctuation and layout, that is essentially it. That is like the Arabic words themselves don't change. The Arabic sentences themselves do not change. Punctuation is where you can take the breath, maybe a semicolon instead of a comma, maybe a page break where there shouldn't be. These are the different versions that you are talking about, but they're not versions of the message, they're versions of a book, the versions of page layout, and it doesn't change the actual message itself because you still read it the same way. That is, in fact, that is the main thing that people look at when they're writing a new Quran, is that is it consistent with what we had before? Because we don't have we don't take innovations. That's something that is very, very like pushed upon within like teaching. Is that anything that completely goes against something is not allowed. It has to either be in some way identical to what we have before. Either the page is just a different size or something like that. That's what I'm talking about. Okay. So there's no different versions of Quran because the message is the Quran. The book that it's written on, there are different layouts, different interpretations, different punctuations and stuff within that because the message was oral. And there is that thing as well where the page that was restored of the Quran, that they used had a page eaten, and then the Christians say an animal. The actual hadith, if I remember, was it doesn't give the size of an animal. In fact, it's more likely that given the location of the book and the location of everything, it was probably a mouse or something. It's not a goat that's just going to walk into the house, go under the bed to eat a specific. It doesn't make sense.
I mean, the hadith doesn't make sense. It just says that.
Don't go that way. I'm talking logically. I could not see a situation where that happened.
I mean, logically, we can infer that isn't the case. But
personally,
the hadith says that.
But that's kind of irrelevant because, as we said, written down was not how it was stored. Everyone around them knew it by memory. And so, for context of how the book should be structured in terms of layout, in terms of everything, that is how it was done. There is no different Arabic. There is no different words, there's no different sentences. So that is the main difference between the Quran and the Bible. We have the original, authentic Arabic version of the message, which was originally revealed. And the Bible, we have different understandings, different versions, different interpretations, different sort of people relaying the message in different ways, and KKK have their favorite versions that every other Christian would say is stupid. And you see what I mean, right?
Yeah.
That for me is the biggest issue with the integrity, or one of the biggest issues with the integrity of the Islamic core, the Quran, and the Christian core in the Bible. So,
I mean, I'm sure ISIS have got their best interpretation of the Quran. I mean, that's not. I'm sure ISIS have got their very version of the Quran. I'm sure the Wahhabis have got their very version.
They don't have versions. No, what they do is they take verses out of context. Like, for example, there's very.
I mean, and we would say that about the KKK. I mean, yeah. But like, I want to hold in.
That's my point. Like, there are some verses and there are some Bibles, and I've seen this, and it's unfortunate that my memory is not great, that I can't remember exactly off the top of my head which ones it is. But there's one that does mention essentially a white race being superior. That is a version. I'm sure you can find it. If I'm wrong, feel free to tell me I'm wrong.
No, it's
comments might do it as well.
But
I'm just saying from what I've seen KKK members on like a camera say that this is in the Bible and show it to the camera. That's what I've seen in a documentary. Okay?
Yeah. I know.
Maybe my eyes are
maybe like the video watched, maybe it was their interpretation. But
that's what I'm saying.
Look, I would just say this.
The same Quran,
all
over.
Yeah, and that's the claim you're making, and I'm not disputing that claim. And you can believe it's fact, that's fine. But the claim I make is you can't burn tongues. Like you made a claim earlier that they recite in the Quran and it's been consistent. If that was the claim, then Uthman would not have to standardize anything because he claims, according to the hadith, and this isn't this is hadith, that he burned. No, but you're not getting the point.
Do you know how many different versions of the word, like even like the word mirror or something? Do you know how long it took for English to become standardized? It took forever. That's the reason why the language is
you're not getting a point. The point you made earlier was that this was transmitted orally.
Yeah.
But the Quran's,
in terms of writing.
So the hadith is saying that no, Uthman actually burnt literal physical copies, and there was one on the Hafsa's bed.
Yeah, if they were written incorrectly, and people would have definitely misread it or misunderstood it for a different.
If they misunderstood it, then it is, to me, it's possible that this centuries-old Chinese whispers tradition wasn't consistent from the get-go. If we're talking about perfect transmission of a text, because I don't believe in this idea that Muslims espouse that there was this 200 years of we've already translated. And I just don't believe it's consistent, because if anybody plays a game of Chinese whispers, you eventually forget stuff. Right?
Actually, hold on. Do you remember the thing that I said to you last time I saw you?
No. If you're talking about what, 3 weeks ago, no.
Yeah. So it's been a bit.
Yeah.
The number 19 was a big reason for me to believe. So
I don't want to jump, because I did want to just finish off my point.
This is entirely relevant. This is entirely relevant.
So it's relevant to what I was saying.
Yeah. Regarding So the whole reason why, for example, I found that number 19 thing relevant and kind of mind blowing was I've got a mathematical brain. The fact that there is a code like that disproves the notion that anything has changed within the Bible, within the Quran, or at least the sections where that code is, that sequence is seen. Because if there was even a single thing out of line there, the numbers wouldn't match up. So if there was a mistake or a page missing or a word that's wrong or misunderstood, you wouldn't have the precise number of words and the precise number of times this is mentioned, the precise distance between here and here. You'd have different sentence structures, like maybe in a shortened sentence or one that's given an extra detail, like you see in the Bible. King James did add a lot of extra things to sentences. That's something I know to be true. So I mean, we can talk for a while. I'll try and round it up if we can.
No, I do as well. That's what I mean.
Last point.
Yeah, that's fine. On that point about the gematria, and I will go back to the transmission.
Okay.
Just slowly, and I'll let you finish off.
Yeah, sure.
But basically, gematria, for example, is used in the Bible. Like number 7, for example, is a consistent number throughout the Bible. You told me that you read the King James, so you should know that the number 7 is used for the spirits, for example. Or there's 7 days of creation. 7 days is a number of 7 is a number of sanctification. Yeah. 3 is the number that Jesus rose from the dead, died, rose from the dead. 3. You also have the 3 days from the time of revelation from Joseph to when the instance occurred with the butcher and the baker. There is a lot of instances in the Bible. Gematria doesn't prove something's true, because even before there was even a Quran, there was various different forms of gematria or numerology. Yeah. For example, we've even got people like Pythagoras determining numbers when they're used in sequence have a specific meaning to them and hidden universal code. This is what the Gnostics believe themselves. So I wouldn't argue that that's something to believe in.
I'll give more context when I respond. Yeah.
Right, that's fine. But in terms of the transmission of Quran, we still haven't addressed the point. The point was, the fact is, the Hadith says that literal texts were burned. Now, if there was a consistent view that these people were transmitting their Quran, they had learned orally, and that it could not be changed, there is no possible way they could forget and invent new Qurans or create new Qurans. It couldn't have happened. But what I'm seeing from the Hadith is inconsistent. Uthman is getting the Qurans, gathering them all up apparently, and burning them and submitting one Quran to different cities. But obviously there was changes within those Qurans, because we still have word changes. For example, king is not the same as master. Like I've just read to you, the Welsh Quran says king.
For sure.
Yeah, but even the meaning being conveyed. For example, a master of a house is not a king of a house. A master is not a king. These words...
In English, there's a clear difference.
These words include authority. They preclude authority. I understand that, but still, they're two different senses of what authority is. I am a master. A young boy in English is a master because he's considered master, like Mr. Master. So again, if we're talking about something that's been transmitted orally and contextually, and for all nations, by the way, for all people, then it should be perfect in every single way possible, if we're going to assume that the Quran's been perfectly transmitted for all time and Allah guides it. We have two different senses, and I just want to end it here, and I'll just let you finish.
Yeah, thanks, I appreciate it.
But anyway, if the Quran claims basically that Allah's He has guided the Quran and all of stuff. By the way, we don't make that claim. We make as Christians that no, the Holy Spirit guided men, but men are infallible. They make mistakes, but these mistakes have been rounded out by the Spirit. We believe that the Gospels are consistent when it comes to Jesus rising from the dead and dying again. The Gospels are consistent in terms of Christ's miracles, what Christ taught, and it has been taught and relayed throughout all the centuries and stuff like that. The Gospel is very consistent, it's very clear that to believe in Jesus Christ alone is necessary for one's salvation, and without Jesus Christ there is no remission or forgiveness of sins. That is the belief, that's the Christian belief, but we would claim it's true of reality as well, right? So, but with the Quran, again, there is an impossible length of just transmission of text, or all transmitted text, to now where we don't exactly know what this Quran is and what isn't. We don't know what these words are and what they aren't. And I've just read one verse from Surah.
From an English
Yes.
From an English interpretation.
Yeah. I mean,
mean,
that's fine, but just because you don't know the author, that doesn't mean that what they're saying is necessarily not true. Because we could say it about the Quran, for example. Do we know the author of the Quran? Not really. But anyway, Lam will play in there. You can finish.
Okay, appreciate that.
Yeah.
So regarding the number 19, just to contextualize it, the reason why I bring it up is because the next verse that mentions over it on 19, I believe it was 71, 30 and 31. I could be off with the numbers, but you can definitely search over it on 19 and get it very easily. The next verse says, this is a test for the people of the scripture, specific. It is for Christians and Jews to look at and come to their decisions on this topic, okay? I'm not going to do the best thingy of it. I'm not going to do my best on the topic. I'm not going to get everything I need to say out. That's what I guess I could say, yeah. I'm not going to get everything I need to say out right now. I couldn't do it coherently. But there are videos, especially one by a man called Dr. Shabir Ali, which I do hope you look at. If not for anything else, then just to, I guess, shoot down. If that's what, at the very least, I recommend you do it, okay? The scope of the number 19 is not just a few things here and there. There are a good list of things spanning the entire Quran that do adhere to this code. And I do recommend you look at it so that you can analyze it. Period. Just for you to analyze it as a person of the scripture according to us, someone that follows the gospel and essentially Bible, right? Bible. So that is why I bring that up. It is for you to look at, and it will help you understand where I'm coming from in the fact that I will 100% say all day to Sunday, there is no mathematical way. Statistically, it could not be possible for the Quran to have been altered. That's my understanding, and you can attack that if you do that research, okay? The other thing that you said, you came back to a point. What was the point that you came back to sort of finish it off?
Oh, no. My ultimate point was about the transmission of the Quranic text and stuff like that. Yeah. I don't find it consistent. I don't think there's an I think all transition of the transmission of the Quran is inconsistent.
And I'll be honest, I'll be 100% honest with you. So I'm a revert, right? Like I said, I wasn't born into a Muslim family and all that sort of thing.
I wasn't born a Christian, mate.
So one of the biggest issues I had with Islam, even after I reverted, was the hadiths, because I don't know the people that transmitted this. I know a lot of people give them a lot of respect and a lot of credit, probably rightly so, but personally I don't know them. And the Quran does say I shouldn't just be following my parents, I shouldn't just be following teachers blindly, right? Because if my teachers or my parents are doing something that is shirk, which is associating honor to God, for example, if I say if I kiss this tree it will give me good luck, that's giving this thing a power, essentially, that, you know, God never said it had that power, I shouldn't be giving it that. So that's the worst thing I wanted to do, because I know it's such a big deal with God's eyes, right? As a Muslim, okay? So I was wary of the hadith for a very, very long time. And it was actually when I studied the Bible that I saw a lot of the stuff that are taught in hadith. For example, when we pray, we mention the Prophet Abraham, peace be upon him. We ask for peace upon his family, and as well as the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. In the Bible, it does say that you should, when you pray, you should mention the Prophet Abraham. You should ask for peace and blessings upon the Prophet Abraham. I can't remember the exact wording, you may have to fact check me on that, but 100% that's in the Bible. And that's what made me think, oh, okay, so it is somewhere. God did say this at some point, right? And it was only when I read the Bible more that I found more things that back up the hadith. So it makes it more logical that a prophet would have said it if God had said it before. And also, if we were to follow the Bible as we were to do when we didn't have the entire Quran, then that's what would have made sense. But anyway, that was an issue that I had that you have with the Quran. That's an issue that I had with hadith. The issue with the Quran I did not have, because when I read it, I saw enough signs to prove for me that the author of it was someone that was above and outside of time and space. So we can leave it on that.
We can leave it on that,
man.
man.
Our own research further.
That's fine.
Ali, do you have something for me to research?
Yeah. Robert Spencer's. If you can get a copy of the Quran by Robert Spencer, it's about £28.
Alright, cool.
Right, just.
Robert Spencer. Number 19 by Dr. Shabir Ali.
Yeah, no problem. It was nice to have a conversation, like all that stuff with them coming over. It's like, yeah.
Like, I can understand, because there's a lot of people that they do go specifically to. I remember I gave that warning before, that if you take someone's word and twist it just to make Islam look bad, you're just making yourself look bad. You're going to get punished. There's a lot of people that do that.
Yeah, I know there are a lot of
people
people.
do that.
And they do the same with Christians, but like...
Yeah, I'm sure they do 100%. I'm sure they do that 100%, right?
Yeah.
But so that's something that everybody is wary of, because at the end of the day, like, we want this to be productive.
Yeah, we're just here to have conversations to gauge others' views. It's not about any antagonistic posturing. This isn't the Crusades.
Exactly. So I guess all the best with that, mate.
All the best, man. Take care. And anytime we're having a conversation, because there's other questions I want to ask. I'm not going to ask them now, but anytime. Right?
So I might do it like elsewhere. Feel free to. You can take the camera if you want, but feel free to like message me on that or whatever.
Yeah, no problem. Right, next time you're at a corner, in fact, if you want to do it there, or like,
yeah, if anything.
Yeah, if anything.
All right, all the best, John.
All right, all the best. Take care, man. Yeah, I'll probably do one here. You can wrap up there if you want. Yeah. In fact, yeah. So basically, look, just had a conversation. Tariq's nice guy. But I mean, again, my questions weren't answered. For example, the idea of the Spirit in the Quran. The Spirit says that he will give Mary a son. Now, we can't simply ascribe that the idea, because he brought up an analogy, which makes sense if you think about it. Oh, well, if somebody gives you KFC, you can ascribe them giving you KFC to Allah giving you KFC. But we're not talking about the same thing. We're talking about giving life. Something which, in essence and nature, only Allah can do. For example, Allah is called the life giver. He's called Al-Haq, the truth. That's what the Bible says. Another point he brought up, because he brought up a lot of points. The Quran's transmission isn't clear. It's very clear that texts were burnt. If we're to be consistent, if texts were burnt, there was differences in transmission of a text. If that was the case, there was never a time where there was this perfect transmission of the Quran, as claimed. He brought up Gematria, other stuff like, I'm just wrapping up, so he brought up Gematria and stuff like that. Again, the Hebrews had a long line before, there was even a prophet, Muhammad. There was a long line of like people doing numerology and ascribing numerological patterns within the Bible and using that to come to different interpretations, even the constellations, like planetary constellations, stuff like that. So if that's the case for Islam, it's not very true. Like, mathematics doesn't prove Islam. A number of pages being consistent doesn't prove Islam. You can make that same claim for Shakespeare's writings, or even for the Yellow Pages. As I said before, the Yellow Pages is infallible. Right? Well, not infallible. It's but it's consistent. It's clear. So if we're going to claim the Quran's clear, then you're going to have to back it up with a bit more proof than, because Allah says so. Well, then how can we know what Allah says? And this is the question I've got for those who are converts to Islam, those who are born in England or other countries that are not Arabic. How do you trust that translation you read is the true translation? What, because scholars told you? Then you're relying on men to give you your translation of the Quran. You're relying more on men than I am with Jesus. You're not relying on the true words of God. We can be certain that a community of Christians gave the Bible, read the Bible, and transmitted the gospel to every city, because that was the very direct command of Jesus, and it's shown historically that's what they did. We don't have that with Islam. We have 200 years of silence practically until we get to Hadith, which claim that there was a Quran, or there was various Qurans in various cities, but they were burnt up to standardize one. Now that's literally what the book burners did during the Nazi regime. They would burn all other texts and just standardize one text, and that's what the Muslims done during the early times. I'm not saying Muslims are Nazis, I'm just saying it's the case, that's what happened. But anyway, leave it here. Come to Jesus Christ, God bless you.